Pro Evolution Soccer 2010 might be one of the most underrated and forgotten games in Konami's series. Fans remember fondly PES 5 and 6 from the PlayStation 2 era, and then the PES 2011 to 2013 run on PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. According to many fans, those were the good times for the series. And I think that most of us completely disregard the games that came between, seeing those titles as the lost years. And you know, often that's for a good reason, because Pro Evolution Soccer 2008 is widely considered to be one of the worst games in the series, if not the worst. But I think that PES 2010 was a different kind of beast. It wasn't just another game from those awkward years. I think it was actually a transitional title caught between two completely different eras of Pro Evolution Soccer. On one hand, it was the first game in the series to take the visual leap in PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 era. But at the same time, the gameplay felt much closer to the PlayStation 2 times. And that weird combination of old and new is exactly what makes PES 2010 so interesting to revisit today. See, there are four main things that stood out to me when it comes to this game. Things I did not remember about PES 2010, and perhaps neither do you. So, let's bring this forgotten game back into the conversation and take another look at Pro Evolution Soccer 2010, nearly 17 years later. Alright, so the first thing that stands out immediately is how fucking good PES 2010 looked back in 2009. This game took massive leap over previous titles. Close-ups are so high definition that it's just wild. Player faces look detailed and realistic. They might look even better than in later PES games from this generation of consoles, which is kinda weird. But the single biggest wow factor is the lighting. See, the lighting in PES 2010 is just simply superb, creating a very unique and impressive atmosphere. This is especially visible during evening matches. I mean, just take a look at the screen now. Santiago Bernabeu looks so special at night. And now check how it looked back in PES 2009. Or hell, even later in PES 2011. I think it's quite strange that no other Konami game after PES 2010 tried to capture that distinct style of lighting again, because I think it was truly impressive. So visually, PES had finally arrived on PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, and it was beautiful. And if you are into playing older football games but don't have them on your accounts, then check out the store linked below the video. It has plenty of older FIFA and Pro Evolution Soccer titles. I've been using it for over 1.5 years now, highly recommended. But while PES 2010 had finally made that visual leap, its gameplay was still caught somewhere between two generations. See, Konami actually advertised 360-degree movement as one of the game's major additions. On paper, PES had finally moved beyond that old-school 8-directional control scheme, but in practice that implementation was really half-assed. The game technically allowed players to move in more directions, cool, but in reality it still often felt like gameplay was operating around the same old directional lanes. Passing was also heavily assisted, so you couldn't always move or play the ball exactly where you wanted. Plus, it had no power meter for passes still, which came only the next year. It was almost like PES 2010 was pretending to offer modern freedom of movement while still playing much closer to the PlayStation 2 games. And when played today, I think that old school style can feel very archaic, but also interestingly unique. It had clunk and junk, sure, but it also had charm, so it's quite cool to experience this brand of football in the 2020s. Gameplay in PES 2010 was also more about deliberate attacking football than the previous two games in the series. PES 2008 and 9 were way more direct and arcadish in terms of what worked on offense. And PES 2010 instead required you to play more smarter brand of football, which was a welcome change. But at the same time, gameplay in this game had one massive issue, and that issue held Pro Evolution Soccer 2010 back a lot. See, the biggest problem for me was the computer AI, or it being more A than I, especially on offense. On defense, I actually think that computer played quite alright, but on offense it was struggling to finish the action. Even on the highest difficulty level, players found matches to be just too easy. That was partially tackled later by gameplay mods for the PC version. These mods improved computer behavior and they also even unlocked superstar difficulty in the game. But even with them, I found PES 2010 to be one of the easiest games in the series. And sadly, that is the main thing holding it back from being one of my favorites. But while the computer AI held PES 2010 back, everything surrounding it had actually an incredible amount of personality. You could feel that as soon as you fired up the game, thanks to its menus and soundtrack. Neither of those things is something that I typically pay all that much attention in football games, but here they were special. This game's menu might be actually my favorite in the entire series. It was just so clean and well designed. The word that comes to mind when I think about PES 2010 menu is cozy. The design was great looking with Torres and Messi on the background of the main menu. And while looking great, the UI was also very intuitive and easy to get the hang of it. And then we have music. Man, what a selection of bangers that was. The soundtrack of PES 2010 was mainly rock songs with well-known tracks. We had songs like Ruby, Dirty Little Secret, Atlantis to Interzone, or Galaxy Bounce from the Chemical Brothers. I wish I could play for you those songs as background of this video to give you the feeling that PES 2010 did as well. But hey, copyrights. All in all, PES 2010 soundtrack might end up being easily in my top 3. It was that good and notable. And the last thing that stood out to me in Pro Evolution Soccer 2010 was Master League. While the gameplay was still caught between generations, Master League was already looking towards the future. PES 2010 gave the mode one of the biggest overhauls. It introduced things like real currencies, finally replacing the confusing PES points whose value never really made much sense. It also added sponsorship deals. By completing certain objectives, you could earn extra money and invest it back into developing your club. And speaking about development, PES 2010 also introduced a proper youth team. Finally, you could develop young talent and then promote those players into your first team. Club budgets and financial management became much more important as well, and for the first time, the Champions League and Europa League were seamlessly integrated into Master League playthrough. With all these changes, PES 2010 built much of the foundation for Master League in PES 2011, 12 and 13. Games that are far more fondly remembered today. So even if PES 2010 itself was largely forgotten, its influence on the series definitely shouldn't be. You know, before revisiting it, PES 2010 was honestly a bit of a blur to me. I didn't really remember it in any particular way. Now I see it as one of the most interesting games actually in the series. Not because it was one of the best games ever, but because you can see Konami caught halfway between what PES used to be and what it was about to become. So yeah, it still isn't one of my favorites, but it absolutely deserves to be remembered. So I want to know now, how do you remember PES 2010? Was it genuinely underrated in your opinion, or do you think it was forgotten for a good reason? And as always, massive shout out to everyone supporting the channel, especially the names you can see right now on the Hall of Fame wall. Thank you for making videos like this one possible. Anyway, that's all from me in this video. Thanks for your time, and I'll see you in the next one.